Howdy, all of you delicious people. I'm here to review Dazed and Confused. I was driven to this film by curiosity because I had spoken to a lady recently, and she had, after I had asked about what her favorite movie or show or thing that she had seen recently was, and she would go on to state her two favorite films were to have been one that was a Christmas movie that I'd seen quite often. I was like, okay, I completely understand why you would state that. And then the other, of course, would be Dazed and Confused. And so for that, I was like, okay, like I remember like this being like a hazing film, and this, of course, being a Matthew McConaughey movie about the high school girls, where that's the thing that I love about high school girls. I get older and they stay the same age. Like that's always the line. But so we would have me say that I feel Dazed and Confused is a very simple film and not really well written. And also like I can like that it's a simple film and that it doesn't have like this goal that it has to achieve. Because I know that there were like so many of these kinds of films where you'd have like four guys all have to lose their virginity by the end of the night. Or we would have, of course, the one man pining away for this one woman. Will he go on and cement his love for this one girl? Will it all work out? Those always kind of cliche-ish like things that would happen in so often of movies at some point. But yeah, so with a film like this, I feel that I have to go on and compare it to a lot of things. And so immediately what comes to mind is That 70s Show, because I feel it's kind of a copy and paste of that show. Or I feel that like That 70s Show took a lot from this, even like music and like the characters look the same. And then when we just start to get to like every single like party movie you've probably ever seen in your life, like Fast Times at Richmond High, just a bunch of actors all together in a film, giving some interesting things. Uh, Can't Hardly Wait, like the Seth Green movie, where Seth Green and the girl are in the bathroom together because they got locked in there. And at some point, they're going to go on and just do it in the bathroom. Reasonably, also, American Graffiti would probably be something that I would probably compare this to, because there's just a lot of scenes where they're kind of all like driving around, trying to get somewhere. George Lucas directed that film, American Graffiti. So, 16 Candles, maybe. Anyways, pushing on. So, what would be the grading of this film? Where can you go on and see it? Teeing it up, what also is it about? So, we come to find that this movie is to mainly be focused on hazing, because this, of course, is the last day of school. And high school, of course, gets released earlier than the other schools do. So we come to find out that the kids that are going to go on and be freshmen at this high school, we have the high school guys that are to want to go on and haze the incoming freshmen, and they do that by taking a wood paddle to their tuchuses, and we have to go on and get every single one of them, and that is to be one of the things, as well as we have the girls that have to go and do their own weird hazing thing about having certain girls propose to certain guys, or have certain girls be wearing pacifiers. It's because they're babies. Sure, makes sense. Feels like we would go on and have this movie be compared to like a frat or sorority where we have pledges who have to go on and do all these goofy, crappy things. But, anyways, we have at some point that this is all to go into a party of sorts where we come in to have certain characters who've gone through this whole long night of trying to figure out who they are, or goofily having these like bizarrish rants where we have at some point where a guy named Mike is talking about how he doesn't want to go on and do what his parents want him to do, that all he wants to do is just he wants to dance. And I'm like, okay. In all honesty, like Adam Goldberg in this movie, like it's a little much, but hey, like that's probably what the director asked for. And so, moving on. So with that said, like we of course have like the iconic Matthew McConaughey lines where he talks about living, and he also is to talk about high school girls and talk about how like if this person doesn't have a thing of weed, it'd be pretty nice if they did. Like those kind of iconic lines from this film. So let's go on and let's talk about where you can go on and see this movie and then get into spoilers. The grading of this film, okay, if I didn't say already. Soft okay, but still an okay. It's still passable. And, like, because I like how simple it is. And some people may not. Some people might just be interested in this because of the cast list. Like, Ben Affleck is to be in this movie as a character named Fred, who just desperately wants to have failed his senior year so he can just go on and just paddle more kids. Seems very odd. So, we can go on and see this film via Amazon, but I'll go on and give you a cluster of other apps that you can dare in fact say that you can watch this movie for absolutely free. And that, of course, is if you have a Google Play Store. So, first off, I would give somebody a brand new app that I've been using for possibly a little bit of a while, but like, I never really know how long that these things are going to last, but I'll tell you this anyways. So, first off, here's an app called Box HD. We would come to find that the logo of Box HD has this kind of film reel, and we have this kind of like barcode thing going on, and it has like Christmas decor, like a whole just barrage of imagery that is to be on this one image. And so go on and check that app out. There, of course, to also be an app that I've been using consistently called Zelliphonic, Zelivonic. Zelliphonic. And I know that there's just a cluster of apps that I would dare in fact be using over the time of which that I've been here. There's just a bunch of stuff that at some point would be a thing that I would probably recommend people still use because it still works. Or there's just a bizarrish thing that hopefully you can go on and just find it somehow in a Google search. But anyways, moving on. I think it's about that time to just double fire this bad boy up. Like I said, the movie is very simple, but I did not go on and talk about it very simply. Let's go into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time to spoil this movie. So, at the very beginning of this film, we come to find our characters driving their way to school. And so, we would of course have Simone, who is talking to Randall, and I think it's like a real missed opportunity that like Joey Adams, who plays Simone in this movie, like she doesn't really do anything in this movie. Like she's just kind of there in bits and pieces, but it's just like there's nothing for her to really like have any kind of real effect in this film. But anyways, Simone goes on and is to grab Randall. It's like, well, hey, where are we going tonight? And Randall's like, well, yeah, I think I might just be like with the boys. And Simone is like, oh, okay, all right. So I'll just plan something with the girls. So, like, making us probably realize that, like, Randall is, like, by the further and further we get in this film, I think maybe Randall is kind of giving up on a lot of things. Because we have Randall going through school, and we have Dawn, who's giving Randall this letter, this pledge for football, that Randall has to sign that these guys will not go on and consume alcohol or do drugs on the off season or at summertime, and well, if we kind of like treat their bodies like a temple. They don't say that, but it's pretty much the same thing. So we have Randall that has no interest in signing this, but then we have all the coaches in the world kind of heckling these guys, like, well, hey, like, you better sign that paper. You better go on and treat your bodies right, and whatever. So we come to find that this is the last day of school, and we have the kids that eventually are to go on and become freshmen for this high school are going to get a whooping with this wooden paddle. And so we have Mitch and Carl and these other guys, because heaven forbid every bit of the whole entire cast showcases itself upon this film, as far as IMDb is concerned. We have them trying to go on and talk to their teacher, like, hey, do you think that we can just kind of get out of here early so we can avoid getting paddled? And the teacher is like, well, hey, like it's either you get it done now or you get it done later. So, but also we have all the guys. They're getting in this. I think it's a truck, and so Benny has this kind of this like radio thing where he's like, and it has to make that sound. It doesn't work if you don't make that sound. So Benny is to have driven up on this vehicle to the school, and it's telling all these kids, like, well, hey, you're gonna get it if you don't get it now. Like, you'll get it at some point. We're gonna find you, and we're gonna give you the paddle. So, like, before Benny and the crew make their way to the school, we have Jody, who's going on and telling the guys, like, well, hey, like, Mitch is my brother, and, like, in all honesty, I feel that I should stay, like, just be easy on him. And so after Jody leaves, they're like, we're not gonna be easy on that guy. If anything, we're gonna treat him worse. He's gonna get treated worse than everybody. We're gonna make an example out of him and all that. So what ends up happening is, as soon as these kids are to get out of the school, they like scramble out of the school. And so we have Mitch and his friends who all like get in this car, they drive off and they get away. As soon as they run into the house, we have the mom who has the shotgun. She's like, and like, as soon as Fred, who is Ben Affleck's character, is to try to make it to the door, to just like, hey man, I'm gonna be swatting away. The mom's like, oh no, you aren't. Like, I have a gun. Get away from this place. And when the kids go inside and Fred like almost starts to walk away a little bit, one of the kids just kind of pokes his head out and then closes the door. And Fred's like, oh no, you're gonna get it. And so we have to go back to, if not on the male side of kind of the paddling, We then also have the girls who are doing certain things of hazing, which I don't know so much about any of this hazing stuff. Kind of feels like a frat or sorority thing. Like, I don't know. I just don't quite get why they're doing it in school. But then you would, of course, have at some point like Family Guy would have covered the no more Mr. Nice Guy, and I think like Adam West goes on like paddles like Chris in the Family Guy episode. I know that show quite a bit because of course I would see a lot of Family Guy, and a lot of times a lot of people would be like, well, yeah, like your last name is Griffin, so Family Guy, is that your family? I'm like, that's a cartoon. Yeah, but why? Why does that happen? I don't get it to this day. But yeah, so Family Guy. No, it's not. It really isn't. Just so you know, just so you're aware. So we would have the girls who are kind of rounding up all the youngins, and so what happens is they're putting pacifiers on them, and they're making them to be babies, and having at some point where they are to be like cooking on the ground, and so you have them just kind of like just laying on the ground and they're bizarrely shaking. I don't know, it's very weird. Out of all of these characters, we had like Darla Marks, who's played by Parker Posey here, that is really just laying in like the sailor talk to these women. And so we have like Jody, who is bringing in girls like Sabrina, and it's like, well, hey, like, come on, like, just kind of get your discipline in, like all the other ones. And so, where they would go on and head with this story is that we would have Mike, Tony, and I want to say Cynthia, but I'm probably wrong about that. Or man, that is probably a really good guess. We have them who are kind of watching this, and so we have Sabrina, who is to be forced to go to Tony and propose to him, as well as another girl is to go to Dawn and propose to him. And they, of course, are to say, it's like, well, will you marry me? And the guys are just like, well, like, what are you going to do for me? And so they're like, anything you ask. And so we have like Dawn, who really goes really far with it. And it's like, well, you're going to do this, you're going to do this. But yeah, so we have Tony, who's just like, oh, well, like this girl seems nice anyways, so I'll just kind of let her off. And we have Mike that turns to Tony. It's just like, well, hey, like, was there some sparks flying between the two of you? And we would come to find by like the later part of the movie that it seems like there is sparks there, that they kiss, and like as we have like this this moment where like the two of them are at the girl's house, and Tony is like, well, yeah, like I guess this is your house, like I guess you want to just go in there, and so they're kind of putzing around with this, and so the girl kisses the guy, and it's like, oh, nice tender moment. But so anyways, girls with pacifiers getting sworn at, it's crazy. So we get that all out of the way, and so we have our characters just going on and having these kind of like these kind of car moments, and we have the guys trying to go on and get high, and they're trying to figure out where the party is, and so the party is to be supposedly at, I think, Kevin's house. Yeah, Kevin. And what happens is Kevin was to have this kind of keg guy arrive, and his parents find out that there's a keg guy that is delivering all these kegs, and so Kevin's parents are like, well, hey, like, this isn't really going on, is it? There's not a party that's going to happen at this house, is there? And Kevin's like, oh no, like, what are you talking about? And so Kevin goes on and meets up with the guy who's delivering all the kegs. And so Kevin is kind of telling him, it's like, well, yeah, you need to deliver this like somewhere else, and say that this is the wrong direction, or this is the wrong place. And so the guy's like, oh, okay, I get it. So we come to find that this house party is a bust, but they go elsewhere. So we have our characters that go on and meet at the this baseball game, because of course we have a bunch of these kind of kids that are going to go on and become freshmen who are playing this baseball game. So we have, of course, Mitch, who is the pitcher, and we have this whole baseball game that's going on, and we have, of course, Carl that's telling Mitch, like, well, hey, like, how about you go on and you run for a certain part of the field, so all the other guys will kind of just run after you, and the rest of us will all be safe. It's like, what a piece of crap! Like, what garbage is this? So we go on to have Mitch is, after this game, gonna go on and be like, okay guys, just do it, just do your worst. So Mitch goes on, and that's where we get the no more Mr. Nice Guy, and frickin' we get Fred, who's just like pieing away at Mitch with this wooden paddle. And so we have Randall that is to be there after Mitch has seemed to have gotten his paddling in. And so Randall is like, okay, like, I'll just give you this pop, and it'll just be a barely nothing. And so Randall goes on to tell Mitch, it's like, well, hey man, like, do you need a ride? And Mitch is like, well, yeah, because my friends left me. And so Randall's like, okay, like, I'll give you a ride. So Randall goes on and explains to Mitch, like, hey man, yeah, just put some ice on it, and like, and just kind of come with us, and like, we'll give you a couple of beers, and that'll kind of even things out. If anybody gives you crap, like, you'll be with us and you'll be cool. So Mitch is like, all right, like, this is great. So Randall goes on to the Imperium, and that's when, of course, we meet up with Matthew McConaughey, all right, and his high school girls, and they get older, but, or I get older, they stay the same age, and all that jazz. And we evidently have Matthew McConaughey's character that loves redheads, because he ends up seeing Cynthia. So I think it's Cynthia. Moving on. So they're at the Imperium, and they're playing pool, and we, of course, have Fred, who is to really just be, like, out pooling everybody, and he's to be giving whoever he's playing with, like, crap, that he has to go on and knock other people's balls in because they're getting in his way. So we have at some point Carl and his friends who are all at this dance, and one of Carl's friends is kind of making it with this girl, but like Carl is going to pull this guy away. It's like, well, hey, let's try to get out of here. So all of them walk off, and the person is to tell Carl's friends, like, well, hey, like you aren't going to get access back in here. And they're like, oh, really? We're not going to get back in? Oh, so all of them walk off, and so we have these kids that eventually find that like one of them is going to get pulled away and get their weapons in, and Mitch, who of course doesn't like Ben because he's a bit of an a-hole, we come to find out that Mitch is like, well, hey, like Carl and buddies, like how about we kind of get even with this guy? And so what they do is Carl is to be found, and so it seems that certain people are to kind of get lined up to smack away, to swing for the fences, to swing away, Merrill. And so Fran gets up there and it's like, well, hey, you haven't been hit yet, have you? And so he's like, yeah, like you're like, yeah, I'm definitely wanting to just savor this moment. And all of a sudden, we start to realize that Fred is getting hit with white paint. And he's like, oh man, what? So Mitch realizes, like, yeah, like we got him. Like, this is great. So we. Oh, there's also the scene where we have the guys who are all. This is before like they meet up at the Imperium. There's Randall and there's Mitch and there's Dawn, and so they're in the car and they're gonna get these beers, and like there's a whole thing where Dawn is gonna like run out of the store, but no, he's gonna pay for it and it's all gonna be fine. So we even have Mitch who pays for beer, that he like says that he's like 18. I don't really buy it, but okay. So, but the guy is like, oh yeah, sure, all right. Like, it seems like he's telling me the truth. So, we have a scene where they're getting high, and we start to have them like grab for garbage cans, and they start to like hit mailboxes, and Mitch goes on and takes his bowling ball and chucks it and hits this back window of a car. So by the time that they get to this convenience store and get back in their car, we have this guy who's to hold a gun on this car and tells them like, hey, like, you busted my mailbox, like I'm gonna call for a citizen's arrest and this and that. So we have our characters crazily driving off while this guy fires his gun, and they're like, holy like they're dodging and whatever these bullets. So they drive off, and it's like, man, that was insane. Luckily, they got off and nobody got hurt. So they go to the Imperium. All these things happen. Matthew McConaughey, high school girls. So we have, of course, Matthew, whose character is to actually be. Who is his character? David is to meet up with Mitch, and it's like, well, hey, Mitch, like, do you have a thing of weed? And the kid's like, well, no. It's like, well, it'd be really, really cool if you did. So they go on to go to this party out in the woods, and we have certain other kind of people that are kind of driving around, making their way to this party, and like certain girls are kind of gossiping about kind of what they heard, and there of course is to be the Mike and Tony and Cynthia car, where we have Mike who's talking about that, like he doesn't want to go on and do what his parents want, and that he just wants to dance and all this goofy crap. Where like Mike is doing, I think, most of the talking, but so in this vehicle. So all this is to make our way to this like outdoors party, as we would have David that is telling Mike and Tony and Cynthia like, well, hey, here's where the real party's at, because that other party didn't work out. So, and David really wants the redheaded girl because he's like, yeah, I like redheads. So they go to this party, and so by the time that Tony and Mike and Cynthia all arrive, Mike, it seems, to pass by a guy named Clint, and he's talking about how they're going on and like, man, somebody's like smoking reefer over here. And Clint is like, what did you just say? And this ends up almost getting into fisticuffs, the battle between the two. And Randall kind of pulls Clint off. It's like, hey man, like he's cool, like don't mess with him. And Mike after that is just like, man, I should have fought him. I should have done something. And so Mike is just kind of stewing away that he didn't go on and fight that fight, because I guess this guy just has a bone to pick with life, it seems. So could have just let it be. But so Mike goes on later on, and it's to dump beer on this guy's head, and that leads to the two of them fighting. Clint goes on and is to punch the crap out of Mike, and Mike is to get all kind of bruised and disfigured horrifically. And but so we realize that Mike just loses that fight, but at least he fought it anyways. By the end of all this, we have Mike and we have Cynthia that like they're looking at how like kind of messed up Mike is, and but he's just kind of happy that he went on and he did that fight anyways. And so we also have at the outdoor party, like we have Mila Jovovich, who a lot of people will probably know from like The Fifth Element with the multipath. Like she goes on to be a character known as Michelle, and she's like kind of playing this guitar. And for this whole entire movie, like she doesn't really have anything in this film either. So I'm just like, man, like there's so many like actresses and also just actors that are just kind of wasted in this film. But I guess, hey, it's like a really cool credit to just go on and eventually get a lot more movies in the future, where you'll probably have a lot of other like smaller parts where you probably will barely have any lines in a film. But so we have this party, and so we have these like kiss guys and they're pink statues. So we seem to have Mitch, who is working really well with the ladies, to have this kind of older girl that is kind of interested in Mitch. And so when Randall goes on and is to be at this party, he hooks up with a girl named Jody, and he's kind of like feeling her up and kissing her. And Jody is like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, don't you have a girlfriend named Simone? And Randall's like, oh yeah, you're right. Randall must just be so high at this point, or drunk, or whichever. Maybe he's a combination of everything. But, like, I think that also, like, Randall may not be really all that into Simone anyways. And maybe, like, that's the reason why Randall is so quick to get with Jody. And so Jody then goes on to meet up with Mitch and is like telling him, it's like, well, like I guess you're gonna go on and be with the friends that I know and hang out with girls that I know and whichever. And Mitch is like, well, yeah, I guess I am. Like that's the goofy thing when you would have people that are to have like the same school that you would go into. Like that would also be kind of like the weird thing, because I would of course be like a certain number of years like ahead or ahead beneath my sister, and so eventually we would kind of share certain schools at certain times, and but yeah, but like I think my senior year or my senior year, her senior year was like my freshman year, and so like that was like the one time that we kind of had like that, and like I would spend more time with my cousins than I probably would with my sister in school for whichever. Because I knew that my one cousin Chelsea, like she was kind of coming up as I was like almost kind of finishing up. So eventually I would kind of randomly see her like, oh hey, hi, yeah, but like it wouldn't be one of those things where I'd be like, okay, well like you're doing your thing, I'm just gonna do my thing. But yeah, so anyways, weird, bizarre connections of which that I am to have, with the life of which that these people lead. So we would of course have Mitch that even further is to with the girl it seems that is to be interested in him. Like the two of them are just at this random place somewhere with this blanket and they're kind of making out and this and that. And like Mitch arrives like the following like morning at his house, and like even Jody was like, hey Mitch, like you should go on and you should like really get home, because our mom would like chew like my head off if um like I was to have been out this late in your age. And so we have Mitch that goes on to make his way home the next morning, and like the mother is just like, well, like you know what, like like you're a good enough kid, like I'll go on and I'll just kind of like this transgression, like I'll just kind of wipe the slate, I'll wipe the slate clean, and like we'll just kind of forget this ever happened. And Mitch is like, oh okay, all right, okay, okay, good. And so like while he's trying to make it into his room, like his mother like, are you drunk? Shouldn't you be able to easily smell it off of him? Like, are you high? And Mitch is just like, no, I'm fine. And then he puts on his headphones and we go on to other things. But so we have Dawn and we have Randall, and like they're still talking about that whole pledge thing. If Randall's gonna really like sign it, or like is he just gonna quit football? And Randall goes on and has him and his friends go to this football field, and there ends up getting like cops being called on these kids because they're on the football field. So we have the coach that comes in, and he's like, man, I ended up getting called in for this. And Randall is to tell the coach, is like, you know what, like I may go into doing football next year, but I'm definitely not going to sign your pledge. And he kind of takes the paper and he chucks it at him. And so all the while at the football field, like they were kind of goofily kind of tackling and doing all these weird goofy like drills and whatever odd stuff that they were just doing. But it was all after like the whole party scene, like what they're doing on the football field. I'm like, okay, why do we even have this scene? Like there's nothing really here. And they could have like edited this whole thing out because it just felt like very flat. compared to like the whole party scene that we got. So by the end of all this, we just go on to have our characters that are all just kind of like just uh, driving off, and so that's how we kind of just end this film. So with that said, I am going to go on and get out of here. Let me know in the comments below how you felt about Dazed and Confused. Hopefully, I would go on and to have remembered everything that happened in this film. But either way, I can just say that I was to have seen this film and I somehow enjoyed it. So, bye, everybody. Bye, everybody.